Okay. And by the way, whenever someone's time is up, feel free to leave. So if you've got something to do, you need to be somewhere. So don't wait for me to finish and delay your things. So then, yeah, it's fine. So whoever needs to go can go. Okay. So obedience to parents. So let's look at this. So I've just prepared a few notes just to make things easier, and I'll put this on the shared link. So by the way, I forgot to mention that we've got everything is uploaded straight onto our link now. So all the videos are there, handouts are there, resources, everything that I use is on that. So if you need anything, just go straight onto the link. So it's a jump share with a password there. Okay, so obedience to parents. So when is it necessary? So let's look at some of the principles. Okay, so number one. So when must you obey parents? So when not obeying them would cause them some sort of harm. So we'll discuss these. Let's just discuss, read through the principles. So when not obeying them would cause them some sort of harm. In those things which do not harm the child. So if it's going to harm you by obeying your parents, then you don't have to listen to them. Let's say if your parents tell you I don't like this business you're doing, go to a different business. But you know that you're going to lose out a lot of money. For listening to them, you don't have to listen to them. Am I recording? Yes, I am. Okay. So if something causes you harm, you do not need to listen to your parents. So number three, they can't tell you to leave a wajib or commit a haram. So anything that goes against the commandments of Allah, they can't tell you to do that. The hadith about this is clear. La ta'ata li makhluq fi ma'siyati al-khaliq. There's no obedience to the creation in the disobedience of the creator. Number four, they can tell you to leave out a fard kifaya. Remember what a fard kifaya is? Good, yes. So let's say they don't want you to go to Salatul Janazah for some sort of reason. You need to listen to them. Yeah?
What if you're the only one?
Then it's not fard kifaya anymore. It's fardul ayn on you. Yeah? Okay. Number five. You can, this is makruh tanzihi, by the way, the makruh that's not sinful. So you can commit a makruh, a lightly disliked act, or leave a mustahab, desirable act, if your parents will be harmed by not listening to them, basically. Yeah. And you must obey them in matters of worship. They tell you to pray your salah, then you must pray salah. If they tell you to read Quran, you generally must read Quran. Yeah. So let's say some parents have a rule, okay, in the house you need to read at least 20 minutes of Quran every day. This becomes binding on the child. They must, and they will be sinful for not abiding by the parents' rules. So these are some areas. So let's look at some of the rules of disobedience, and we'll come to like practical scenarios, inshallah. Okay, a minor sin tends into a major sin if they've prohibited. For example, the parents, they say don't swear to your friend, and then you swear at this person, and then it comes back to them because of that hurt that they will have. Because of that hurt, it turns into a major sin because of that pain that you have just caused your parents. But let's say if they don't know about it, then there's a gray area. Maybe it won't be an extra sin, but it's that pain that causes them. Okay, so if your parents tells you not to travel due to legitimate fear of harm of life or limb. So if they say, okay, don't travel to Turkey because the roads are very dangerous, or I don't know, you're going to a place where it's not actually that safe, then you must abide by them. But if you want to travel and there's no reason for them, they just don't want you to travel just for the sake of it, or they just like you being around in the house, not that they need you, or you're traveling for a good reason, let's say to learn, for ilm, for business, or for anything else beneficial, then you don't have to say, you know what, you can just go. You don't have to listen to them because they don't actually control you. Your responsibility is to be good, respectful to them, but it's not that they control every aspect of your life. No, so there you don't have to listen. So if you want to go out, but yeah, and we're talking about adults, by the way, here. So what? And yeah,
even if the child is mukallaf and grown up.
If you're still living with your parents, there is a slight different dynamic here. So let's say when you're not living with the parents, dynamic completely changes. But even when you are living with the parents, there still needs, from their side, there needs to be some sort of reason as well. They can't just be like, I can command anything I want. I'm going to tell you to stay home. You have to stay home. You can't go out at all. There needs to be some sort of reason, kind of thing, as well, because they still don't have the complete authority because you're an adult. Yeah. But if, let's say, they know that you're not mature enough to be traveling by yourself, then they have a point. Then you'll be sinful for not listening to them. you just want to go out and party and do sins or something or whatnot, then you have to abide by that.
How would you like arbitrate any differences between like the child and the parent from these kind of?
So number one is going to a knowledgeable, I wouldn't even say imam, because generally imams aren't really knowledgeable in these areas. Knowledgeable mufti that the parents also respect, to basically balance what the father is saying with what the child is saying. Because generally, and the reason why I'm saying not just an average scholar or an average imam, because they haven't done research themselves in these topics. So they are the same as a layman in all these topics. Sometimes you even go to an imam to arbitrate and he says the complete opposite thing. And it's completely against the Sharia because he just wants to please the father. Or generally you want to please someone, isn't it? So for that, you need to have like intricate knowledge of exactly where the boundaries lie. If you don't know exactly where the boundaries lie, you're going to either want to please the son or you're going to want to please the father, basically. I've had one incident. Basically, the mother was being extremely unreasonable with the child. I say child, but he's like 28 or 29, yeah, extremely unreasonable, like oppressive. So he called this like sheikh kind of scholar kind of person, yeah, to come and arbitrate. And there he just sided with the mother with everything. And the mother's like very deceitful. She's always lying to him. She's always manipulating him. She's literally like the worst oppression you can think of a person can do to their son. That's what she's doing. And the sheikh sided with her because but you have to be obedient to your mother. Jannah is under her feet. No, this is nonsense. Some mothers do not have Jannah under their feet, by the way. They have Jahannam under their feet because if you actually listen to them, she can take you to a wrong path. Yeah. So what it means by obedience, it means Jannah under the feet in that scenario means being respectful to them. Doesn't mean obeying them. Because when the hadith talks about the parent, it's about birrul walidain, to be righteous to the parents, not complete obedience to the parents. There's a difference. So our job, even if they're telling you to do shirk, there's no room for disrespect because the being righteous to them still stands. Yes, you say, I cannot listen to you, but the obligation to be respectful to them still stands. Yeah. So difference between being respectful and complete obedience. Islam does not, because if it's complete obedience, then you're putting yourself out there for oppression, isn't it? Which Islam doesn't say that. Okay, so yeah, but if let's say the parents they say you can't travel because of a valid Shari'i legal reason. For example, they need you to be there for their food, they need you to be there for their clothing, or they need you for their medicine and so on. This is a valid legal reason because they actually need you. So then if you go, despite them needing you, then you'll be sinful. But if they don't actually need you, or there's your brother's there or your sister's there, but you're their favorite son and they just want you around, then that's not a valid reason. You can't say, my brother is here, I would love to be with you, but I need to travel for 3 days kind of thing. You're not sinful and you're not a disobedient child. But if you left your father or your mother hanging without any help and they actually need you for the necessities, then that's different.
So I could have gone home for Umrah, really?
Yes, you could. Okay. So every permissible and mustahab action after the command becomes wajib. So if something is just generally advisable in Sharia, but they command you to do it, it becomes wajib upon you. So they do have that authority, but obviously within reason and so on. You shouldn't like cause any harm to you. As long as it's not causing any harm, then you should abide. Why shouldn't you abide? Because it's not causing any harm to me. So let's say a classic scenario Imran probably faces on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, he's playing online on the PlayStation. Yeah, and on online games you can't press the start button. You're going to lose. So his mom says, "I need your help to fix the dinner. Come now." Must he abide? Or can he say, no, I don't want to, after I finish the game? What's the rule here?
The mom agrees that okay, you do it after.
If she agrees, then the command has changed. The command has become, okay, after the game come. But if she said, no, you must come now. Yeah, you have to abide. Yeah, same run. That's even more concerning. A young guy that doesn't play any games. That's more concerning. But yes, you have to abide. So so any general command, if they've commanded you to do it, it becomes wajib for you. If for a permissible reason, if they're just being unreasonable, then that's different. So if they ask for money, you don't have to give them if you don't have extra. So you don't have to, let's say, be poor yourself and live outside to house them, or go hungry yourself to feed them. That's not your obligation. If you want to do that, have your generosity, that's fine. But if you don't have any extra money to give them, you don't have to give them any extra money. But if you do have money, then you just have to provide the necessities. Yeah, and this is something very important to know. So let's say the parents are used to living a lavish lifestyle. Let's say even let's say every meal has to be meat, chicken, and fish, and about 5-10 different curries and so on. Yeah, and they expect their son, who is not living with them, he has his own, but to actually pay for their lavish lifestyle is not necessary on him. Yeah, if they need, or they're going to go poor, or let's say starve without him, then he just needs to provide the necessities. So let's say one curry is enough for one meal. You don't need 5. Yeah, so he's obligated to just do the bit necessities for them to actually live a comfortable life, not a lavish life. And the reason there's actually, I've dealt with disputes where the mother is saying he's a disobedient son, he only gives us this amount of money, and he was actually treating them very well. He used to look after whatever they need in the house, he'd buy them all the different foods, but they wanted a more lavish lifestyle. And so what your son is doing right now is it's not even his job, and you're wanting more from him. Very unreasonable. And if they ask for money for smoking or drugs, then obviously you don't have to listen. Yeah. And the reason I'm saying I've actually dealt with cases like that, the father used to ask his children for money. He had a drug addiction, and they were asking, are we disobedient for not listening to him? Because he's quoting all these hadiths about being good to your parents. Yeah, so no, it doesn't apply here. Okay, and this case I've also dealt with as well. My father has asked me to divorce my wife. Does he have to abide? No, it's going to cause harm to him. Yeah, he does not have to listen. And the father even quoted a hadith or an instance of Ibrahim alayhi salam. I'm not sure if anyone's heard it.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, so basically the thing is, Ibrahim alayhi salam with the wife of Ismail alayhi salam, I think it was. Yeah. And Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't like his wife, for whatever reason, doesn't say. So basically Ibrahim alayhi salam told his Ismail's wife, his son's wife, that when Ismail comes home, tell him that I want him to change his doormat. She didn't know what that meant. So she went and told him, your father said he wants you to change your doormat. And he was a Nabi, he was clever. He was like, okay, he wants me to divorce you. So he said, okay, you're divorced. Yeah. So this is not a normal scenario. Number one is a prophet to a prophet. If your father's in the status of a prophet, then Bismillah, listen to him. Yeah? But if your father's not a prophet or even near that, then you don't have to abide by, because his words aren't revelation or his words aren't inspired by God. Yeah. If he says don't go and study Islam, they don't have to also listen to him. That's fine. And sometimes parents, by the way, sleep, please leave. Yeah. Sometimes parents, they emotionally blackmail that if you do this, especially let's say I had one incident where the mother said, if you move out of my house, he's an adult, he's living with his wife, I will not even go to your janazah, I'm going to make dua against you, I'm going to say, Allah is going to listen to my dua because I'm a parent. This is all nonsense. Yeah. The duas of a parent only comes into effect if they have a right to be angry, if they have a right, or one of their rights have been broken. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, I'm not sure if you remember from our fiqh lesson, he's literally the greatest tabi'i, the greatest scholar of Medina to have ever lived, probably after the Sahaba. And he left his father. He said, I don't want anything to do with you. And he never even went to his own father's janazah. Yeah, so he completely migrated from his father because father was unreasonable. He's, used to tell him to do bad stuff and so on. So in this state, I'm not going to talk to you. So when you have a reason to literally say, I don't want to talk to you, then this is something that could be, yeah.
Then you still have to maintain the family ties.
Yeah, so your job is to try. So let's say sometimes the parents are being extremely unreasonable. So I will not talk to you until you move back into my house. Do you have to move back into the house to maintain the family ties? No, it's not. But do you have to, let's say, do salam to them, when you see them, just, try at least a certain amount? Yes, that's fine. But you don't have to give in to the parents' demands if they're unreasonable. So if they don't want to, hate you, then that's their problem. That's their fault, not yours. But saying all that, it is the right of the parent to be honored and respected. In no scenario, doesn't matter how unreasonable they are, you're allowed to disrespect them. So that's number one. So always their honor and respect has to be forefront. Number two, it is the command to the children to love them, to obey them, and to always keep the khidmah in mind, the service, to do their service. If the father comes into the room, these things should be, okay, how can I obey him? How can I serve him? And if they need something, without them even telling you, you should think, how can I fulfill my parents' needs? This should be the default mindset of any child, regardless of how old you are and how old your parents are. And next is your primary concern is, how can I always provide more comfort? And how can I be concerned by basically seeing them and visiting them? So these are general mindset that a child should have. And if a child does not have these mindsets, he doesn't care about doing the khidmah, he doesn't care about creating ease or comfort for them, literally just let them do what they want, then that person would be considered a disobedient child. Does that make sense? Any questions about obeying children, children obeying parents? Now, any like scenarios, cases based on these principles? So these are obviously what I've mentioned for so far, generally is just generic things. Then you can use these to apply. So let's say if there's a course in the masjid and your father says, I don't want you to study, I don't want you to go there. Do you have to listen? Sisters, if there's any left?
It depends if it's like for your safety, then you can probably.
If there's legitimate harm for your life or your limb. In the UK, is that generally will be that case? Probably not. There's probably like safer means of going there, isn't it? Yeah, so unless there's legitimate harm to you, let's say you have to take like 2 buses and it's going to be nighttime and you have to do a lot of walking by yourself, then that's legitimate, isn't it? But if let's say like 5 minutes down the road or something, or in your same town, and you can even get picked up by someone if necessary, then that's obviously that's not legitimate.
So what about this? For example, like so my dad was saying not to go for floods, so it's like -5 and it's icy, but I live like 3-4 minutes away from the university.
So now you have to say, is there legitimate harm to your life or your limb here?
Well, it depends if you pass the ice, the -5 temperature, right?
Okay, so will that cause any harm to your limbs, like they have to cut it off or something? No. Yeah, so they don't have to obey them.
But you get bruised, right?
That's not legitimate harm. That's something every man should be able to tolerate. Yeah. So yeah, so they have the right to obedience there. Any other specific scenarios?
For example, if your parents want you to marry someone within your culture, but you find a righteous person that isn't within your culture, and you want to marry them, but your parents are against it, but you still marry them, and your parents are hurt by the fact that you went against what they wanted. Would you be sinful for the hurt that you caused them?
I would say no, especially in today's environment where we're going to mix schools, we're going to mix universities, and this is bound to happen. So I would say no, they won't be you won't be sinful. Unless it was someone, let's say the character is not good or they're not observant of the Sharia, and you married them anyway despite the approval of the parents, I would say in that case they have a legitimate reason, so then you would be sinful, in that scenario.
So how would a woman go about that, considering a woman would need a wali?
In the Hanafi school, she doesn't need the wali.
Yeah.
That's why the Hanafi school is key here. Yes.
Although it's a minority opinion in the Sharia, but
It is.
yeah, okay.
That's fine.
Well, why is that important?
Because the hadith is, the Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that la nikaha illa bi waliyin. There is no nikah apart from a wali. And then she says that every nikah done without a wali is batil. Is basically like, how do you translate batil? Like doesn't count, basically. False. Yeah, false. Yeah, this is her hadith. But if you actually look at her practice, there's another hadith. She married her brother off without her parents' permission. So she got her brother married, I think it was Abdurrahman or something, and her parents didn't even know about it. So what's she doing? She's married her brother off without a wali, isn't it?
But that's a man. A man doesn't need a wali.
I can't remember. I can't remember who she married off. I mean, I think it could be a woman. I can't actually remember. But basically, she married whoever off without the permission of a wali. So basically, what the Hanafis say that this was probably the rule before. Basically, the principle of the Hanafi schools, whenever a narrator goes against their own narration, it shows abrogation. So that's the Hanafi school. So we say that this hadith was abrogated due to other reasons. And this is just one instance. There's other reasons where we say abrogation. Anything else? Any other questions before we end? Okay, then we'll finish today, inshallah. Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Assalamu alaikum online guys.